China the Powerful. China, like other countries such as India, Iran, and Egypt, has a very long history. In its history, it has enjoyed great power over centuries. While many things about China's culture and traditions remain a mystery, its powerful status is well known. So how did this happen? Here is the story of how China became powerful. Traditional Chinese values. China has many long traditions based on hard work and self-discipline. Confucius, an influential philosopher, taught harmony, respecting one's elders, and the importance of family ties. In the 1950s, the People's Republic of China put forward the 5 principles of peaceful coexistence: respect for each other's land, mutual non-aggression, no interference in each other's internal affairs, equality and mutual benefit, and peaceful coexistence. Where did these values come from? How do they affect modern China? China's first emperor. For most of its history, China has not been one country. The first person to unite China was Emperor Qin Shi Huang, 259 to 206 BC. Qin Shi Huang kept a strong control over his people. He banned books and did not allow private weapons. High-ranking families were ordered to live in the capital, Xianyang, so they could be easily controlled. He even built roads and waterways so his armies could easily get to troublesome areas. The growth of China, the Han Dynasty. From 206 BC to AD 220, most of China's important ideas emerged. China became one of the most brilliant civilizations in the world. The first Han emperor, Gaozu, changed the political system away from powerful families being in control. Instead, officials had to pass tests to show their abilities to do their jobs. Toward the end, the Han Dynasty faced natural disasters and popular unrest. By the year 220, China had split into 3 kingdoms. The Shu, Wu, and Wei kingdoms ruled independently until about 280. The Tang and Song dynasties. About 300 years after the 3 Kingdoms period came the Golden Age of China, with the Tang Dynasty, 618 to 907. China, under the Tang emperors, was the most advanced nation in the world. The Tang Dynasty's first emperor, Gaozu, 618 to 626, united China for a second time. His wife, Wu, became China's only empress. However, in the 8th century, China lost its western lands and much of Central Asia to the Arabs. After a time, China split again into various kingdoms. The Song dynasty is divided into 2 time periods called the Northern Song, 960 to 1127, and the Southern Song, 1127 to 1279. It was an advanced time for technology, art, and science. The Mongols. The biggest threat to China was the Mongols. Their first major invasion was in 1213, and they had captured Zhongdu, present-day Beijing, in 1214. The Mongols strengthened their power, and by 1234 they had conquered all of China. The Mongol rule of China made many Chinese nervous of foreigners. By the Ming Dynasty in the 15th century, foreign trade was booming, but China limited the contact with foreigners for ordinary people. In the early 17th century, China was attacked by rebels again, this time from the north. The Manchu people who lived north of the Great Wall dealt with the rebels. From this, the Qing Dynasty was formed. The Qing Dynasty. The Manchus easily occupied northern China, but it took them longer to conquer the south. They created a prosperous state. By 1720, they had conquered Tibet. However, foreigners were still not allowed to trade freely. After the Opium Wars in 1839 to 1842 and 1856 to 1860, the French and British forced China to open to foreign trade. They demanded ports, territory, and rights to travel within China. The Japanese occupation. After the Opium Wars, as the state was weak, there were many small rebellions the state had to cope with. Moreover, in 1894, a war began with Japan. With its superior technology, Japan quickly won impressive victories and occupied large parts of China. Japan also won control over Korea. The shock of the Opium Wars and the Japanese invasion led to attacks on foreigners in China. The Boxer Rebellion attempted to kick all of the foreigners out of China, but it was quickly defeated by an alliance of foreign nations. People's Republic of China. The early 20th century was a time when many Chinese people decided the best thing to do was to move away from the old ways and embrace new ways. In 1911, the Chinese Revolution overthrew the Qing Dynasty. This put an end to over 2,200 years of imperial rule. Unfortunately, China became unstable. In 1949, after struggles between the Kuomintang, the Nationalist Party of China, and the Communists, Mao Zedong declared the People's Republic of China. As a result, all industry became owned by the government, and people worked in small communities for the common good. By the 1980s, some people began to call for economic reform and more cultural freedom. By the late 20th century, China's economy grew into a giant on the world stage, a true superpower. Lessons from the past. China has at different times been united and divided. It has been repeatedly attacked by invaders, some of whom adopted China's culture and others who did not. But today, 92% of the Chinese people consider themselves of one united race, the Han. China's history has given its people a sense of purpose to become the world's most advanced nation again. Given its stunning rise in recent decades, it might achieve this goal. China has a long history to draw on, a stable political system, a hard-working population, and pride in being an important world power. Modern China. Today, the world's countries want to do business with China, and China wants to do business with the rest of the world. Chinese tourists spend hundreds of billions of dollars a year on travel and shopping. China also has some of the best educated people on the planet, consistently rating very high in world rankings. China is also looking forward to its future. It invests heavily in science, research, and development, and especially green technologies. Is China a superpower? There are many ways we can determine whether or not a country is a superpower. We can look at its GNP, its economic size, and its average income per person. We can also look at its military power and political influence in the world. But are these measures what we should use for the future? In recent years, new measures have emerged. In Bhutan, the government measures its success against how happy the citizens are. There are also efforts to measure a country's value by degrees of social progress, such as whether the country provides a foundation for well-being, adequate health care, a decent education, and so on. Many questions remain. There is no question that China is powerful and will be for a long time to come. By making things and selling them to foreigners, China has climbed the economic ladder. But will China be able to evolve beyond manufacturing? In our hyper-connected world, how connected and involved will China be with global or local issues? Will nations look to it for help in times of need? Will it help to protect the world from the effects of climate change? Pollution, Lack of education in rural areas and poverty plague China. China has made significant progress in recent years, but there is still a long way to go. Is it likely that China will take the lead technologically and militarily? Will China play a key role in fighting international terrorism? Will it develop long-term alliances and friendships with countries around the world? Many of the world's citizens know little about China, its music, its art, its cities, or its culture. To many in the world, China is still a mystery. The closest contact many people have is with its food. How long will it take for China's soft power to develop? Whatever the answers are to these questions, there is no doubt that China will play a large part in the world's future.